All right, everyone. Welcome to the next episode of the Restoration Success Show. Today we have Nate from Restoration Made Simple. How's it going today, Nate?
Doing good, thank you. How are you doing, Jamie?
Not bad, not bad. All right, well let's just jump right into it for our audience here. So tell us a little bit more about your background and kind of how you ended up in the restoration industry.
Yeah, I don't know if it's much different than a lot of other people. Maybe it is, but my background has always been with startup companies. Greg, who is my current business partner, and my brother, about 18 years ago, 20 years ago, they owned a Chem Dry carpet cleaning franchise. They were probably one of the biggest in the country. I think at that time I think they had 18 trucks that they were running. They were doing a couple thousand homes a month of carpet cleaning, which is pretty impressive. During that time frame, ChemDry did not allow you to do disaster cleanup work per the franchise agreement, but they kept getting phone calls to do disaster work. So they finally decided they were going to just create a separate entity. At that point, they had called me because they knew that my background was with startup companies, but I had no experience in the restoration space whatsoever. All my background was in IT and education. But I thought, well, it's worth the risk. I didn't have any kids at the time, so my primary goal was just to go do all the sales, to get on all the vendor programs with the big carriers like State Farm, Allstate Farmers, and so I came over, and the first 6 months was awful. I think we all wondered if we'd made a poor decision, and then after that, the lights just clicked. So we grew the company really quick. And within a couple of years, I actually bought Greg and my brother out with one of my business partners. He already owned a restoration company, so he continued running that one. I continued running the one that I had. So we had two companies running side by side, which definitely helped for our marketing because if they didn't call one company, they called the other one, which was really nice. And then about 6, 7 years down the road, as we kept getting bigger and bigger, we had three different locations. And at that point, we just merged both of our companies into one company. So yeah, I've been doing it for 18, 19 years now from that side of things. I sold out a couple of years ago to my partner, so I sold my equity back to him. And then just recently, he sold out to Blue Sky. So I wish I would have held on a couple of years longer. I would have made a whole lot more money with the private equity buyout. But when I sold out, I knew that I was going to be transitioning. And that's when I got into the consulting. And so now Greg and I, my business partner, we're back as partners doing the coaching and consulting for restoration companies.
Awesome. I heard you mention there was like a pivoting point when you guys, turned a corner and there was explosive growth. Is there anything that like stands out in your mind that you guys started doing that you weren't doing to kind of hit that, exponential
Yeah,
growth?
really good question. And now that I'm on the consulting side, right? Those that first year is awful and it's hard because it's not as easy as what we all think it is. I think for us, it was the pure consistency that I never gave up, right? I think a lot of people give up too quickly, but if you think about if you're marketing to insurance agents, to property managers, to plumbers, I tell all my clients now it takes at least 6 months to a year for a sales rep to really build a relationship. And it took legitimately 6 months to a year to get those relationships to where they liked me. I think one big key thing that we did that really at that time helped us, we had a big warehouse shop. We actually built out a section of it that looked like a house. And then we started flooding that, and we would have our continuing education classes with all of our insurance agents. We would invite them to come to our flood house. And 18 years ago, people did not have flood houses, right? So they would literally, we would get 30, 40 agents in, and we would teach every single month and have them coming through. And I will tell you, I've probably taught over 2,000, 3,000 insurance agents with CE classes. Word travels really quickly when you've got people in your shop and they see you as the professional. So I think that at that time was a really big tipping point. And then me being naive, I was young in my 20s when I came on. I told them the first account I'm going to get is State Farm. It took me a year and a half, and little did I know how hard it would be to get that. But when we got on State Farm's vendor program, it just the tides turned our direction, and then everything just went crazy. So I think those were the two big, turning points for us.
Yeah, no, that's it's funny about what you said, or not funny, but I agree with. I won't go into I think I've mentioned my story with that, but on the because a lot we help our clients with the online marketing piece of things, but we tell them like, hey, you should marry this with the online and offline done together consistently can be a game changer. But so whenever that comes up with our clients, I tell them what you just said though. You ain't gonna walk in a plumber's office or insurance agent's office one time and it be done. Because I
Nope.
was in business development. Now, general contractors and subs at the time, I was doing something a little different. Those were my clients. But my old boss, he's like, Jamie, be prepared. This is gonna take at least a year. So he just set that expectation and it sucked for a year.
Yep.
But around that year mark, it was a tipping point and I never really, I would still go see him just to like maintain a relationship, but I could quit. I managed millions in projects just from like a few, you know what I mean? Like it finally clicked. I was good. But again, that year is not easy to do it. You said consistent, right? Like I made a note of that,
Yep.
like the
Yep.
consistency, because it's not easy. Like it's hard for any, especially, we all have the attention spans these days are not very long. So to do anything for a year, I commend anybody doing anything for a year. So that's
Yeah. Given our society where we have everything at our fingertips and we're used to getting it, relationships don't come at our fingertips. That's the one thing where you still have to continually keep doing your part in order to nurture it and to get it where you want it to be.
yeah. Yeah. Is there a certain because in the beginning when they're just getting started, I mean the owners are gonna have to do a lot of the stuff themselves. Is there a certain like revenue threshold that you guys typically, hey, once you hit this, you could start looking to bring on some business development reps or hire out some. I mean, I guess there's caveats to the situation. If somebody's backed by, private equity has money, they could just from day one, right? But I guess in a normal
Yeah.
scenario, is there like a little window that you typically see guys starting to build that out?
Yeah. And you made a good point is if I have people coming to me that already have money, then they go, you may as well get a salesperson because they've saved enough or they got deep pockets. And still the fastest way to accelerate your company is having a salesperson. But because we do specialize with small to medium sized companies, a lot of these guys don't have that financial capacity to right off the bat be burning through cash. And so I would say for me personally, that you got to be around at least 500,000 in revenue before you can really think about a salesperson. Because a salesperson, once again, you're not going to see an ROI from them unless you bring a competitor who already has contacts established from the get go.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're just hiring a rock star salesperson, but they haven't been in the industry, it's 6 months to a year before you will see any ROI from them whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say you got to be at least 500,000, but in many cases, I say closer to 800 to a million to really justify. Because if you're at 500,000, you're probably still going to be in the red by the time you're paying them and all your other expenses in most cases. Now, it depends how you set up your company, and it depends if the owner is doing all the work on the disaster stuff or if he has guys doing it. If the owner's doing all the work and he's got one or two helpers, then he probably could afford it. But if the owner's choosing not to be out in the field and he has a salesperson and he's only doing 500,000, it's going to be pretty hard to hit that break even in most cases.
Yeah, I mean, we kind of look at the online marketing piece the same way. We're like, well, because you're like, it's going to take on average, considering they don't, you didn't pull somebody from a competitor or whatever. Like, if it's going to take 6 months to 12, if you got the funds, the best time to do is now. Let's get that
Yes.
time rolling and moving forward, right? So that's
Yes.
where we look at because some of the pieces of the online world, it's not a 2 day process, right? There's a ramp up period. So we're like, well, if you're in this for the long term, you might as well get it rolling because that time has to go. It's going to go by one way or another. So,
Well,
um,
and as you know, your expenses starting up are almost 3 months lagging, sometimes four, because you get the job, but you have to pay you or have to pay your sales rep, right, for the lead that comes in. Your guys do the job. Let's just say that they're done with it in a week, right? Then they have to write the estimate, then they got to send it to the insurance, and then collections on mitigation, if you're lucky, is 30 to 45 days if you're lucky, right? So you've almost got a 3 month gap from when you get jobs to when you get paid. And so you got to be able to front that money knowing there's a big gap, right? Now, once you get those wheels in motion, it won't matter because you'll have continual revenue coming from the past. But starting out, that's a long period that you're forking out a lot of money before you get any cash that comes through the door at all.
Yeah, yeah, it's I mean, they just need to be prepared for it. I mean, that's just the way it is, right? But once you bust through, you get a little bit more breathing room. But yeah,
Yeah.
there's definitely that, and that's just this is a great industry, but I think there's pros and cons to all industries. I mean, the con, is obviously collections in from insurance
Yes.
companies, but it's the
Yeah.
hand we've been dealt. So,
Yep.
what's your take on TPAs or third party administrators? I mean, a lot of your clients you see using them. Like, what are you hearing about them these days?
Yeah, and I hope that millions of people listen to this podcast for your sake and for mine. So, um, so I did with Michelle Blevins with CNR magazine, right? So I wrote an article, and then she had me on her podcast or her show that talked a lot about TPAs, and um, I think it was Michelle. It's either Michelle or Clean Facts. Now I'm forgetting, right? But either way, long story short, I have found it in our industry. You either have, well, actually, I don't know that anybody just loves TPAs. Let's be totally honest,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But you definitely have a lot of people that are strongly against TPAs. And I have found in many cases, and this is a generalization, that a lot of times it's companies that are smaller that hate TPAs, right? They've got really strong opinions. They think that they're crooks. They can't bill what they need to. And you know what? To be totally honest, TPAs are there to control costs. There's no getting around it. But I've also told people in the same breath, and our company, we were doing multi-millions with my company, right? Before I left. So I would say we were a large company. We were very successful. We did do TPA work. And the question that I ask everybody, because whenever we have our owners' workshops, all of our owners fly out to it, and everybody has some pretty strong opinions. They hate them. But let's just look at ATI, look at Blue Sky, look at Belfour, look at Paul Davis, look at Service Master, look at ServPro. These companies are all doing over $1 billion a year, and they're still all on TPAs. So if TPAs were unprofitable, I don't think Belfour, ATI, Blue Sky would be doing work for them if they weren't making money. Let's be totally honest, because they've got people that are crunching the numbers that are way smarter than you and I. Some of these guys are publicly traded. They wouldn't be doing it if it wasn't profitable. So I tell everybody you need to seriously consider it. I don't like TPAs myself, right? Like they are a pain in the butt, but we were very profitable. If you learn their system, and then I tell other people, I go, a lot of my clients are having a hard time getting paid on jobs from insurance carriers because adjusters just won't return your phone calls anymore. When you're on a TPA, you get paid, right? And a lot of times you get paid directly. So think about the amount of hours you pay a secretary to try to collect on jobs. What if that was eliminated, right? What if you got paid for all of that? So I have seen a big shift even within the last year and a half. A lot of my clients who were anti TPA, last year was a down year for our industry. Like if you read all the reports, claim number was down. All of a sudden, my clients started going, hey, which TPA should I look at joining? So when you need work, TPAs are still a good, consistent flow of work that is just another avenue. Once again, I'm not saying that I like them, but you've got to have 5 to 7 revenue streams where your work comes from if you don't want to be out of business, right? So you really need to diversify, and you know that with your SEO company, it's an avenue. They need you, but they need agents, they need plumbers, they need property managers, right? And if you're not diversifying, to put all your eggs in one basket is really, really dangerous, in my opinion. So, super long answer. I don't like them, but I think everybody should strongly at least consider them.
Yeah, no, I mean you covered a lot of good things in that, and yeah, we agree because yeah, we do SEO, but we do Google Ads, LSA. I mean, we do many different things. We call them fishing poles, right? We put multiple 5 to 7 fishing poles in the
Yes.
water to help with the consistency of leads and jobs, right? Which is a huge problem in this industry. And
Yep.
TPA, each TPA is another revenue stream in the water.
Yep.
And we have been hearing, yeah, since overall claim volume's down, like we've heard a lot of our guys use, TPAs. But yeah, again, they're like, well, we don't want to just rely on TPAs. We want to. They're like, I mean, it's 2025. We need to be doing some online marketing now. We're like, well, we agree, but
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
not either or. It could be both,
Yes.
and we advise both. I'm like, man, yes. Are you going to love them? No, you're probably not going to invite them to your wedding or over for Christmas dinner. Like, but
No.
if they're giving you if they're giving you jobs and they're paying you, to your point, and also to your
And
point, I would almost, I'm 99% sure all of our clients doing 10 million plus more a year are using TPAs.
okay.
Every
So
one of them.
to
Yeah.
my
And
point, to
exactly.
my
I'm saying, to
point,
your point, the big boys are using now. Yes, they're more difficult. Yes, they eat into your profit margins, but our clients at that level, they're like they have the system and the machine built. It's a lot smoother, and honestly, with they love the leads we send because they're used to dealing with the rebuild and the recon too. Usually, so they're like, man, we can handle all that. Like this stuff is easy. We're like, let's roll. Yeah, I mean, 'cause they've already been through the grunt of figuring all that out.
well, and let's be honest, right? Just now from the consulting side, because of what I do, I go, if your break even number as a company, let's just say it's 50K a month, right? That's your break even with all your costs. When you get a TPA job and you've already surpassed the 50K, everything on top of that is gravy. That's pure money, right? So let's say you're used to getting 50%, but with TPAs, you're getting 40%. Well, who wouldn't take 40% of free money if you've already hit your break even? Right? Like
Yeah,
it's like, guys, that's just gravy, right? And if you've got 100 fans sitting on the shelf and you're used to charging $30, but you now get $26, are you making more money having $26 on the job, or are you making more money having it sit on your shelf?
right.
Right? Like
Yeah.
take the money,
At least
right?
you're putting the people and the equipment to work, right?
Yeah,
In the corner of the warehouse, it's not.
not making any money.
Yeah, not doing you a whole lot of good there. Yeah, no, I
Yeah.
mean, that's kind of, yeah, we have heard though a lot, this year too, that just the overall volume that, and that's why they're like, hey, can we ramp up this or that with you guys? But then we're like, hey, have you partnered up with this TPA yet? They're like, no, I mean, just to kind of like, to
Yep,
your point, we want multiple streams coming in for them to help with that consistency. What
absolutely.
let's so let's shift gears a little bit because I heard you mention this a little bit. So when it comes to referral sources, right, which we all know this could be another great, are there like, well, honestly, I kind of hear just like you said about TPAs, like there'll be some heated, oh, I hate them, I'll never touch them. Some people are like, dude, we love them. We get millions a year from
Yeah.
them. Like I kind of hear the same thing sometimes with like plumbing referrals in some markets. They're like, oh yeah, we generate a lot of money from them. Some people are like, oh, the plumbers here have already been bought out. Like, yeah, it's always what are your thoughts on just referral sources that you've seen over the years?
Yeah, it's once again, and I'm actually going to be doing a sales class here in a couple of months that talks about this. But if you look at our industry, as I'm creating my PowerPoint presentation for all of this, there's legitimately about 5 to 7 sources where work combat adjusters, you got TPA, and then I'll lump internet all into one big category. So SEO, internet, pay per click, whatever, right? And then you've got like government or contract work. You look at those 7 things outside of those 7 markets, verticals, that's where the work is coming from for probably 80% of what's out there right now. Like I say, there's outliers, don't get me wrong. So I tell people that makes it easy because you know what your verticals are to go market to. So it makes it really easy from that perspective, but it also makes it hard because every other disaster company is tagging those same 7 verticals, right?
Yeah. Well, sorry, I had a minor technical difficulty, I think, in the middle of that. Just for the audience here, in case I mean you don't have to go deep on each one yet. I might pick one or two out, but we recap the big seven for
Yeah,
me.
so you've got insurance agents, insurance adjusters, property managers, plumbers, TPA work, internet. And when I say internet, that's all forms of internet lead generation. And then like contract, like government contract, right? So with schools, municipalities, public works, that type
Yeah.
of thing. Like those are the seven probably biggest verticals of any work in this industry. So we're all, like I said, for my sales reps, it's really easy because I go, here's the seven that are the lowest hanging fruit. And from a numbers perspective, you need to go for lowest hanging fruit first, where most of your work's going to come from. The bad thing is that means all the other disaster guys are probably targeting that exact same work as well,
Right.
right?
Right.
So, the plumbers, I don't like the referral fee thing. I'm out west, and I can tell you where I live, we're up to $1,500 right now that they're paying the plumbers, right? Arizona is up to 2,000, right? It's down and dirty. There's no getting around it. I don't care who you are and what side of the fence you sit with ethics, but it is getting out of hand. But it's also, you're paying $1,000 to Inquirly or 33-mile radius right now too, right? And so, what's considered bad? Well, I don't know, because you're going to pay that. So would I rather pay a plumber? Maybe I would, right? I'd rather have a relationship that I can control.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, and usually what we've seen for people to hit their growth goals, like I think a big mistake we see is like guys will get one, maybe two of those going. And then, but they're like, well, but then those can cap too, right? Based on how many jobs that plumber is getting. They're like, well, I'm only getting 2 jobs a month. It's like, well, dude, they're only doing 4 total jobs a month. Like you got to add more, into the more streams. But, and I was actually going to, because the paper lead providers out there, right? 33 Miles, Service Direct, Inquirely, a lot of them. I mean, we tell a lot of our clients like we don't do pay per lead, but we help with their own branding, their own marketing. But it's another lead source. Um, and again, with those sources, just like TPAs, some people are like, oh, we love them. Some people are like, never, never again. It's we've heard it both, but we have heard that they're, to your point, there's some markets they're thousand, we've heard 1,500 a lead in some of these
Yeah,
markets.
it's crazy. And I still say, just like TPAs, I go, you still have to look at it. You still need to consider it. If it fits within your business model, then go ahead and do it, right?
Mhm.
But it's just understand that plumbers are typically as loyal as the dollar amount that they get paid, right? So if it's 1,500 a day, it's probably $1,600 tomorrow from the competitor, right? And so
Mhm.
you've got to really build a strong relationship with those plumbers if you think that you're going to keep them loyal, because they're getting bombarded with more money every day.
Yeah, and and I think look at the market too, because like because we got clients all over U.S., Canada, and like we hear some of these markets, it seems like plumbers hadn't been hit as hard as some of
I
the
agree.
markets that we all, like you said, the 1,500, 2,000. I mean, but there's some, they're like, yeah, they're not making me pay. Some of our clients are like, yeah, we have a great relationship with Bob the plumber, and he's feeding us a ton of work, and he's not even asking for anything. Like they have it.
Yep.
I mean, it just depends on the market. It
And that's the golden goose, right? If you can get those guys and say, hey, let's have a mutually exclusive relationship, I would prefer that all day long. They're far and few between, but if you can get those, it's much better for both companies, in my opinion.
Yeah, yeah, no, I agree. So let's shift gears to hiring. What do you kind of, do you guys help with, because growing and scaling a restoration company, there's going to need different people, obviously they need techs, they're going to need some, some help in the office. What are some of is there like a pattern you've seen of, I mean, I know this is kind of a loaded question that, it could depend on how big the company is, but, let's just, for example, let somebody say, they're trying to go from 1 to 2 a year, for
Yeah.
example, like, is there any like advice or key hires or ways to go about it that you've seen like really help people explode or get more organized, get the machine, a little
Yeah.
bit more well oiled and efficient?
So we normally take an approach because not all, but a large number of our clients are like, hey, I'm busy, got to hire somebody, right? And we like to take more of a metric perspective to go, okay, well, let's look at what your costs are. let's look at what the burden rate would be if you bring on a technician, right? Let's just say it's a technician position. What is that person going to cost you? And then how much revenue would you need to bring in to at least break even with that new person? And then how much revenue would you need to bring in to actually make money off of that guy? Because a lot of times I have seen owners, they bring on a technician because they are busy, but when they bring that person on, the amount of work that they get still is not offsetting what they're paying a paid employee, right? Um, and so I don't like knee jerk reactions. And a lot of our people, like, I got to hire somebody because I'm busy this week. And then 3 weeks later, they're dead slow. And it's like, now you got this burden that's going to be hard and you can't just fire the guy, or hopefully you don't just fire him. So we normally come up with a calculation of what each truck should be doing per month in order to justify before you hire it, right? So in most cases, based upon how your company's running and based upon how you write estimates. Now, some people will disagree with me, but that's because they might have a really high job average. So they'll, it's all based on job averages, but you should be running 40 to 60,000 a month with your truck, right? In revenue. And if you're consistently hitting that and going above, then you start it going, do we add another truck? Right. So we would like to look at it more from a financial perspective than just a gut feeling perspective to go, does this make sense financially to do it? Because, like I say, simply bringing on a guy does not mean you're going to make more money. In many cases, our owners lose money because they were busy and then they became slow. And that's never a good scenario.
Right. So on average, what you guys typically see, I mean, you're right. This will vary by the company. I mean, whether you do rebuild or not, obviously has huge implications to this. But on average, I was doing some quick math. So like you see anywhere from 500,000 a year per truck on the lower end, and then ideally closer to 750-ish is kind of like the
Sweet
sweet
spot.
spot.
And it kind of depends if you're running one man or two-man crews, right?
Yeah.
So with
Yeah.
my company, the year that I sold out, we did 2,300 jobs that year. That's a lot of jobs. We had three different consultants, right? Because we were getting to the point where it's like, crap, we keep growing, but we're not making more money. And there's nothing worse than being more busy than you ever were before and making less money. And I told my partner, I was like, dude, I didn't sign up to work 60 hours a week and make less money. I'd rather be small than big if this is how it's going to be, right? Like
Yeah.
it was a
Yeah.
pain. So we did bring on the consultants. And at that point, we had a really, really smart guy. I mean, he was not from our industry, but somebody that we knew. And we realized that our guys, two-man crews, the average amount of windshield time that they were on the road was almost, I think it was like 3.5 hours per day of just driving from job to job, meaning half their day is in a truck. And we're not making any money off of that. And if we got two guys in there, we're definitely not making money, right? So a lot of this does depend upon, I think, logistically how you plan, right? A lot of people do just send two guys out, and I'm like, guys, this is very, very inefficient, because I tell everybody the second a guy gets in a truck and drives to a job, you're at least $200 to $300 in cost right off the bat. By the time you have workers' comp, insurance, gas, their hourly, that's what you're going to be paying, right? So I think to your question, and I know I'm not giving you a really clear answer, this comes down to two-man crews or one-man crews. Um, Obviously, OSHA has some requirements where you do have to have two guys on a site if you're in confined spaces, but I am more of a fan. When we first started, I had one-man crews on all my stuff. And I will tell you, my one-man crews work way harder than my two-man crews did, because when you get two people together, they like to smoke together. They like to go grab a drink. They like to go out to the van together. Everything is them talking more, right? When I had one-man crews, they want to get home to see their kids, their family. They want dinner. So, so I did it. Now, I'm not saying that you should always run a one-man crew. That's not the point. But it
Yeah.
is amazing how inefficient you become when you typically start sending more guys to a job. There is typically more laziness, in my opinion, or more downtime when you have more guys on a job. So you have to really logistically, I think, be smart with how you do stuff.
Yeah. No, that's a great perspective. Um, and I don't remember, I'm probably gonna butcher this, but you brought up the windshield time. I haven't read this, but I might, I need to go back and read this article. But there was some study that UPS did on its routes for its drivers or something, and they looked at doing right turns only versus.
Oh,
If you did you
yes.
hear about that? Like that
I
made me.
remember hearing, I don't remember the statistics, but I remember hearing about it.
Yeah, and I don't know, but that made me think of that when you brought that up because I mean, obviously that's their drivers on the road all day, every day, so it'd be wise for them to. But
Absolutely.
I love how you brought that up. It's like, yes, we don't have, our stores aren't going out there and hiring Deloitte to do some traffic analysis study, right? But I love how you brought it up. I mean, a simple way is to think about like two guys in a truck versus one, like distance to job, windshield time. You start adding in the overhead costs associated with that. Like a lot of
Yeah.
I feel like in construction in general, like, a lot of we didn't have those type of conversations, really getting granular of like, because you're right. I mean, growing top, everybody wants to grow top line, which is great. But if that margins get squeezed as you're gonna,
Yes.
one day look up and be like, dude, what? We've grown, but now I got more headaches and no
The
money and
bigger
less
you get,
margin.
I was gonna say, the bigger you get, the smaller your margins are, generally speaking, right? It's very
Yeah,
hard, and that's why you have to really start looking at your numbers, or else you go, God, I increased my sales 40%, but I made less money this year. How did that work? And that oftentimes does happen to a lot of owners out there.
yeah, and it's typically, I mean, I think this is true for all businesses, like way more complex and way more
Yes,
issues you're solving. It doesn't get
it's
like
hard.
I mean, sometimes things, you can get a little better, more breathing room if structured properly, but it's never a perfect just, there's normally bumps and bruises along the
For sure.
that's why I tell our clients a lot of times, like, look, this isn't all rainbows and unicorns.
Nope.
Yes, you can make a lot of money, but this is, it's a big boy game, big girl game, so
Yes. Yeah.
um awesome. Well, this has been fun, Nate. So if people want to learn more about you and Restoration Made Simple, what's the easiest way for people to connect with you?
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of people do wonder, what does our company specialize in? And I would tell the audience, it's startup companies to medium-sized companies. That is really our specialty, right? So I'd say most of our clients are 0 to 5 million in revenue. Yeah, we got guys that are doing 10 and 15, right? So we work with them as well. But generally, we have found that 0 to 5 million is the people who still need the most help. People are still trying to grow, still trying to figure out this industry, dial in their SOPs, their KPIs, that type of thing. So that's really our specialty. We have with our team now, because we have grown. So we have individuals who specialize in each area of the restoration company. So we've got every division covered as far as specialty consultants goes, if that makes sense, right? So whether it's finances, whether it's estimating, whether it's production, whether it's sales and marketing, or owners, we've got with our team now, it's very dialed in on that side of things. So that's who we like to work with. We like working with people that are open-minded for sure. Everything that we do is month to month, which is very unheard of for consulting. Normally, you've got contracts that are a year. I mean, some of my contracts with my old company, we were 3-year contracts. I didn't like that. So it is month to month because we understand things change and we want people to see the value. If you don't see the value, no harm, no foul, right? So it should be a win-win for both parties on stuff like that. So,
Yeah.
our website, is simple. It's just restorationmadesimple.com. So it's a very simple website, but yeah, we'd love to talk to anybody out there for sure.
Awesome. All right. Well, yeah, just go to Google, type in Restoration Made Simple if you want to talk to Nate or somebody on his team. And Nate, I appreciate you being here today, and maybe we'll get you back on here in the future sometime.
No, I appreciate it. It's been a pleasure. And to everybody out there, success, go kill it, and show the world who you are.
And don't give up.
Don't
Consistency.
give up.
I gotta add that
Don't.
in there. No, 2 to 3 months.
Yes,
Commit to it, and you will see the light at the end of the tunnel. All right, guys, we're
absolutely.
gonna wrap up this week's episode. Until next time.